Sex workers on Reddit, what's your approach for special cases of clients, like obviously depressed, sad, sick individuals etc.? What was the most unfortunate case you've ever encountered and how did it affect you? I worked as a pro-dom many years ago, and there was one particular session that I'll always remember. The gentleman was in his 40s or 50s, and initially he just said he wanted a spanking session. During our negotiation right beforehand he told me it was important to him that I bring him to tears. He broke about 45 minutes into the session, and it was like a dam breaking. He sobbed and hyperventilated and wailed while I held him, stroking his hair and soothing him and whispering reassuring things, for nearly an hour. When he eventually calmed down enough to talk, he told me that his mother had died suddenly 5 years before, and that despite being devastated by it he hadn't been able to cry, not once. His grief had been trapped inside for all that time. He couldn't let go enough to express it before that day. He called me about once a week for several months after, just to thank me again, and each time he sounded brighter, happier. By the last time we talked he sounded like a completely different person than the man I had met. It was wonderful to see him blossom. It's not a job I would ever return to, but that experience with him made the entire job worth it. A few years ago I had a client book me for a dinner date. During the date, he started crying and told me he just got a divorce. He and I started seeing each other often and I actually met his daughters once. It wasn't planned. His ex-wife was a demanding bitch. He loved his daughters so much, he loved to cook and would make this cute homemade lunches for them. He had a terrible time sleeping and he would often get drunk because he was trying to dull the pain. For a while he found a girlfriend but it turned out she just was using him for money. The last time I saw him he was talking about taking a vacation to Mexico. I didn't hear from him again for a while and I figured he must have found someone special. I'm not really sure what compelled me but I googled him. I found his obituary. To this day it kills me inside because maybe he wasn't really going on vacation, maybe he meant he was going to kill himself. He died only about a week after the last time I saw him. I feel really guilty and I think of him often. He was a really nice person and I feel terrible that he won't see his daughters grow up. When I was 18, I was a phone entertainer, phone sex operator. There was one older gentleman who called every Monday without fail. His wife had passed away and they'd never had any children, so he was extremely lonely. He just wanted to talk to someone. I had the option of giving people free minutes, up to 1 hour per month, so he got all the minutes I could give. We talked, literally just talked about life, for about half an hour each week. He just wanted someone to talk to and share his life with. He passed away about a year after I started. I never got last names, but our dispatchers did, so when he didn't call 1 week, I messaged one of the dispatchers to see if she could find anything on him. I got a link to his obituary that day. Turns out, he was just an hour away. I went to that man's funeral and just broke down. His sister was there, and I guess seeing a 19-year-old girl crying like she'd lost everything got to her. I explained what he'd meant to me. I was in an abusive relationship at that time and he was the closest thing I had to a friend, and how much I would miss the talks we had. She ended up giving me his favorite Carhartt jacket after our talk. I still use it every winter and think about how it felt to talk to him. I'm so grateful for the time I had to know him and I miss him so much. If it weren't for him, I would still be in that relationship, but he gave me the strength and advice I needed to leave. Rip Hooley. I miss you and still have a glass of Johnny Black every year for your birthday. Only going to edit this once, thank you for the awards. Also, never thought my first award, 2K plus upvote, yada yada would be about my days as a paseo, but I like to think it's not me but Hooley that brought this much love. Y'all are amazing people who deserve friends like him and I hope y'all have it or find it in the new year. Veterans coming home from tour will be out with their boys celebrating and in a split second a lap dance will go from sexy to holding them while they cry. I think the physically close nature of a lap dance that resembles being held triggers something. Especially if an emotional barrier is down due to drinking. My approach is to let them be there as long as they need to be or until my bosses kick us out. It breaks my heart because there isn't anything more I can do. I want to tell them they can come back and cry as often as they want to and they're safe there, but I think the feelings are just so large that they want to avoid ever encountering them altogether. Only 2 have come back and only one of those 2 utilized it as a safe space. A lot of guys used to be really ashamed about it, which I always thought was sad. I loved my job and the way I saw it was we're all safe consenting adults, I'm making a living and they should have a pressure-free shame-free way to enjoy themselves. We're all humans and the fact is lots of us like sex. There shouldn't be any shame attached. Also, I'd sometimes get guys who pretty much just wanted a nude female therapist. I remember having this one customer once, though this was at a strip club I worked at, and as soon as we went in a private room I started getting undressed and he quietly asked me not to and to just sit with him. Not unusual. So I did as he asked. He was a really intelligent bloke, an older guy, seemed like a sort of high-up successful educated guy. He was really apologetic to me for just wanting to chat and I, as usual when this happens, tried to be reassuring and explained that if he just wants to chat I really am more than happy to. In the room with me, it sort of became obvious that he thought he didn't deserve to look at me or at women at all. It was really sad, it wasn't about me at all, you could just see that this guy really hated himself. Like he just seemed so upset and disgusted at himself. And he was absolutely lovely. I wish I could help guys to not feel that way about themselves, but sometimes there's just not much you can do. Phone sex worker here. I had one individual that I talked to for around 50 minutes who wanted me to make him kill himself. Not for sexual purposes but because he didn't want to go out alone and felt if I had blackmailed him he'd get the guts to do it. Key points: he was a healthy 22-year-old guy. Had a nice-paying job as a teacher and a loving family, but no so. He said he wasn't depressed, but it was obviously he was sick mentally. But was 100% serious in wanting me to make him kill himself. He wanted me to essentially ruin his life and his family's idea of him. So telling him mom his kinks and send her his nudes. Logging into his Facebook and sending his siblings nasty messages. He wanted me to get him fired. The plan was I would get him fired and while he was living off his saving I was to then steal his saving. Send him pictures of the things I'd buy, expensive clothes, a car, vacations, all while he couldn't afford to eat. It was a very chilling call. I had to take a break for a bit. I normally kind of go along with guys who have fantasy, but I know this guy was for real. I could hear it in his voice, the things he told me. He was just a sick guy who needed a huge push. In the end I didn't do. The guy logged off and I sent him a long message. After that night he never logged back on. I didn't know if he ended his life or not. I hope he is alright. Other guys are super lonely and give me a fuck ton of information. I get addresses, card information, family drama, it's crazy. People think they can trust me. But they don't even know what color I am or my actual name. When I was working as a cam girl, I'm now a sugar baby, I had this one client who was a regular, and I mean a few times a week kind of thing. He was very submissive, wanted to be a pay pig, wanted to be degraded, wanted to be insulted, tortured, really anything bad you could do to yourself. He also had a 2-inch hard penis. The money was good and I knew these kinks existed, so I went with it and played the online abusive dominatrix and made a very nice amount from him. After a month or so of us having sessions, we started to tell each other about our lives. He told me about how depressed he was, how he was a virgin and basically scolded by females constantly. It was to the point that it even turned him on, I guess. He was a client for a few months until he finally told me that he lost his job a while back and had been spending all of his money on me and now he was completely broke. I don't know how to feel about this, we haven't spoken since then and it's been over a year. I wish I could understand him and the way he thinks. Really, any men who have this overall fetish. I don't understand this extreme level of masochism. I worked as a cam girl and a stripper. Honestly, the best approach, in my experience, is to just listen. Especially with stripping, there were nights I made buckets and buckets of money just listening to people talk. I had a client in particular that was a very well-off lawyer. He was married and had kids and would come in and have one drink and just vent. If we ever went in the back for a dance, the majority of the time it was just talking as well. I think sometimes he worried about people recognizing him. Sometimes he didn't even want to talk, he just wanted to listen to me talk. He was very intelligent and I honestly enjoyed his company, we had some awesome conversations.